Welcome back to Inside Ambition, a casual news show where we talk about all things Drexel. I'm your host, Alexandra George. Listen, I was really hoping that this would be one of the final inside looks I'd film here in my childhood bedroom. After all, that closet doesn't keep itself clean. But as I'm sure you know, Drexel has decided that this year's school year will be starting off remote for the fall quarter, which means I lost housing, probably like a lot of our viewers, so I'm gonna be staying here for a while. But I gotta say, as much as I'm shocked, I'm not surprised. It truly feels surreal to see my Instagram feed returning to normal, with so many of the people I know returning back to their college campuses and holding sorority recruitment in their masks, sleeping in their dorms with their roommates, and getting lit at college parties. The University of North Carolina just pivoted to remote learning after only a week of in-person instruction that led to almost 200 confirmed cases on campus and about 350 more students who were quarantined due to possible exposure. So I think we're lucky. University of the Arts, UPenn, and all Philadelphia public schools had already announced their virtual plans long before Drexel did. Temple is the only major Philadelphia university who will be returning to campus this fall. Students there are in the process of moving back right now, and I'm sure by the time this episode airs, those owls will all be flying back to their home nests. I know we all hope to be back on campus this fall. After all, most of us probably expected to be back the week after our original spring break. And I'm sure you all are very disappointed that we won't be back, and I hear you. I feel the same way. But I think that universities and colleges have a tendency to think about themselves first before they think about the communities they inhabit. So instead of focusing on the fact that Drexel's going to be remote this fall for this segment, because that would be a bummer, we're going to talk about gentrification in West Philly instead. Woohoo! There's a lot to be said about gentrification, not just in respect to Philadelphia, but also the way that Drexel perpetuates this issue, which begs the question, what is gentrification, and how is Drexel making this problem worse? Now, let's take an inside look. Say what you will about Drexel winning the Ugliest Campus Award. Trust me, look it up. But I think most of us can agree that living there is pretty great. I mean, except for the fact that hardly any of us are currently living there. The city of Philadelphia is a beautiful place that Drexel gives us access to. And while it can be a bit pricey, Evo, the Philadelphia community is nothing short of great. Even though it is part of President Fry's mission to make Drexel one of the most civically engaged universities in the country, that is a pretty low bar to set. Colleges historically have a lot of issues when it comes to their relationship to the communities they're a part of, which is easy to see in the incident that occurred on 52nd Street last month, and the fact that both UPenn and Drexel don't pay property taxes as they are nonprofits, so they don't support the local public school systems. Penn for Pilots and Drexel Community for Justice alone have a lot to say to show that there are still issues with Drexel's place in the Philly community. And with Drexel pushing forward on its plans to build Schuylkill Yards, the issue has reared its ugly head back into the conversation. Gentrification is the process of renovating certain neighborhoods, businesses, or homes to conform them to middle-class tastes. This in turn brings in a large number of middle-class people and displaces the current residents who are often poor. This is an issue that's been happening for years, often negatively impacting Black and brown communities, just like the one Drexel is home to in West Philly. And I'm sure most of you have had the experience of stepping a few feet off campus and feeling like you've entered a whole new world. Gentrification will do that to you. Gentrification is a huge issue because it ruins communities and changes neighborhoods. Just imagine having to leave the neighborhood you grew up in because you can no longer afford to live there. And not because you lost your jobs, but because of all the money-hungry developers who want to improve your neighborhood, which really just means bringing in the rich people. We can see the effects of this right here at Drexel through the expansion of our campus all through West Philly. As bigger, better, and more luxurious buildings and businesses are built and brought into the neighborhood, the cost of living rises and completely changes a neighborhood without thought or care to those who previously inhabited that area. And to make matters worse, there's a lack of transparency from the developers and institutions like Drexel to the people who live in these communities. They are rarely ever given proper notice and sometimes find out only when construction begins. That's not fair to them, on top of the fact that their neighborhood is about to change before their eyes, and they didn't get any input. With all this in mind, Drexel's plans for Schuylkill Yards, the plans they have for further expansion, and the building of the medical school, it is fair to have some serious questions about how Drexel is affecting the West Philly community. Schuylkill Yards will find its home in the 14 acres between the University City campus and 30th Street Station, you know, where Taco Bell is. The long-term plan is to take the 14 acres of underutilized land and construct new buildings that will be used as teaching and research facilities, offices, residential spaces, and places for entrepreneurs. Drexel and UPenn in the past have been scrutinized for their gentrification of West Philadelphia. I mean, the entire area is called University City for a reason. Interestingly enough, Fry was involved in both UPenn and Drexel's gentrification problems. He oversaw UPenn's attempts to improve Philadelphia communities back in the late 90s. UPenn made the effort to specifically buy buildings and land in order to clean up the surrounding communities. And while their intentions were going good for their school, ultimately their plans backfired when the value of homes there skyrocketed. As a result, most people in Penn's surrounding community were forced to move out. Earlier this year, Penn terminated its contract with the fresh grocer on 40th and Market, which is a move that most people criticize considering Philly's history of food deserts. Plus, some say that Penn just wanted to move them out because it didn't fit their vibe. Just think, Frogro and UPenn, they're not usually found in the same sentence. In the past 20 years alone, the average home in University City went from around $80,000 to $500,000. I know Drexel students love to complain about the Drexel shaft, and a lot of us just lost our housing too, but I think we can all agree that this is a completely different kind of screwed. Regardless of these universities' intentions, it doesn't matter how nice Schuylkill Yards is going to look, or how much Drexel cares about its responsibility to help West Philly. This ultimately doesn't matter when they're upping the values of homes as a result. And with residential and business spaces being offered in Schuylkill Yards, it's only going to get worse. And the damage has already been done here. So what can Drexel do to mitigate their mistakes? Well, maybe they can start by not making any more. While Drexel claims that they care about what the community says, from the looks of how poorly things have turned out, it's clear what they're doing isn't effective. Drexel should really consider getting some Philly residents on their board, or whatever group makes these decisions, in order to help guide them. Someone who understands what the community is going through and what they really need. And I'm sure it's a lot more than some new squash courts. But getting these community voices is only the start. As Drexel students living in a gentrified neighborhood, we can use this information as an opportunity to be more conscious of the community around us. Despite the differences between Drexel's campus and the Philly neighborhoods, they're just as much Philly residents as we are, if not much more. We are the ones who invaded this neighborhood. Because we are visitors, we should recognize the struggles these Philly residents go through and see them as people. Whether or not you're planning your own return to campus this fall with Drexel being virtual, stay up to date with the local West Philly news. Learn more about the community we have learned to call home, and find out ways that you can help bridge the gap between our communities without stepping over boundaries. To stay up to date with all of our content, make sure to follow our Instagram at inside_ambition and subscribe to Drexel Television's YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and share below. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.